Welcome to another edition of Anthony T's Horror Show. I'm Anthony T. In this edition, I will be talking about some Warner Brothers news with The Last of Us, Gremlins 3 possibly happening. I can't believe that I'm saying that, but that is a real possibility that we may get another Gremlins movie after all these years, which I don't mind, seriously. Then I'll look back at my time at CT Horrorfest from last month, as I'm still trying to catch up on the podcast, literally all the stuff from like when I took this long break. So I got all that, plus in What's Anthony T Watching, I'll review a film that I picked up at CT Horrorfest. Not telling you the film. I will not tell you the film at all. You have to wait and see, as usual, because I just don't want to give any hints. It could be a VS title. It could be another title I picked up from a vendor, a guest. It could be one of those things. I'll keep you in suspense until the end of the podcast. But first, let's start off with the news, as I've got not one but two new segments in this episode. And why not start off this podcast with, yes, the most talked about topic of the podcast, Jason Blum and Blumhouse Productions. As what I feared has happened. It was the thing I did not want to see. Seriously, I really did not want to see this at all. But Blumhouse officially brought the rights to the Saw franchise, with James Wan and Leigh Whannell rejoining the team. Okay, that's good. At least James Wan and Leigh Whannell are back. I have no problem with that. If they're going to rejoin the team, then maybe this is a bad thing. Because literally when I was talking about last episode, I was assuming that Jason Blum was just going to buy the IP property, then make his own spin on it, and try to IP the property to death on his own. That's why I did not like the fact that Blumhouse was in the running for the Saw franchise. Because with Jason Blum's track record lately, it's not been that good. Seriously. I still haven't forgotten about Night Swim, Jason Blum. Seriously. And how I want my 90 minutes back. Literally. And how could you greenlight a film about a killer pool that has no bite to it? But anyway, I digress. As he picked up the Saw franchise, and at least the good news with this is that James Wan and Leigh Whannell are going to return to the franchise. And I'm very happy to see that. Seriously. Because they're the ones who produced an all-time horror classic with the first Saw film. It has probably one of the greatest endings to a horror film ever. You know, those nice twist endings. It was so great to have that. It really set the tone for a new form of horror genre. Now, we had 10 million sequels after that, but, well, who's counting? Because I was hoping it would go right to Saw 11 after the success of Saw 10. Now, I don't know what they're going to do for Saw 11 now. Seriously. Or they're just going to reboot the whole thing from scratch again. Which I could also see, seriously. Given the fact that Tobin Bell is up there in age. But still, at least I'm reassured that James Wan and Leigh Whannell are going to be involved in this. Because when I was talking last time, I thought this is going to be another IP grab for Jason Blum. Because he's doing that a lot lately. He's releasing Megan 2 this year. He's releasing The Black Phone 2, for which did not need a sequel until its killer trailer came out like a month or two ago. Then, okay, I can see why we can do a sequel to it. Change the game of the franchise. I can see that. So at least he's having a plan with his IPs. Especially Black Phone 2. Because I think there's a plan going in forward that it's going to be more supernatural now. Which is fine. Now you've got to explain why in this film it just took a supernatural route. Which I think we are going to get. Because it did leave some questions from the first film. The thing is, I don't like studios buying franchise just for the IP. It just doesn't work out. Look back in the day when Dimension was buying IPs left and right for Hellraiser, Children of the Corn, and the Halloween franchise. All in all, those films are subpar at best. And it really didn't capture the original films. Which the Halloween films, the only really good film that Dimension put out was Halloween H2O. Hellraiser, don't get me started on that. A couple good direct-to-video sequels, and a guilty pleasure of a fourth movie called Bloodlines. Remember that film? Hellraiser Bloodlines? You know? The film where Pinhead's in outer space, which is totally ludicrous. But then again, we did have Jason X. Jason in space. So, then they basically did nothing with the Children of the Corn property. The third film sucked. And the rest were just direct-to-video films, which I didn't even bother watching. All in all, Dimension never had a good track record with its IPs that they purchased. And that's the thing I fear with Blumhouse. They're starting to go the Dimension Films route of the 1990s. Getting these IPs once they be popular. And while we don't know the result of how these films like Megan 2.0, The Black Phone 2, and the eventual Saw film from them are going to turn out, I just don't like production companies getting IPs just for the sake of getting IPs to make films. Because of the way Dimension Films handled all those properties back in the video store days. And that's why I did not like the idea of Blumhouse trying to get the Saw franchise. Now, it's in capable hands with James Wan and Leigh Whannell if they have a lot of involvement in it, yes. But if they have limited involvement, and it's just going to be Jason Blum having most of the involvement, I'm worried about this franchise, quite frankly. We'll get to the point where we'll see Saw in space? No. Because there's no way you could do that type of film. There's just no way. Even though I'm giving bad ideas, there's no way they can make that type of film, literally. So, I'm hoping that Blumhouse Productions uses the Saw IP and treats it right. Because the last time they had an IP that major was the Halloween franchise. And for a film and a half, it was really good. Then it went downhill. And let's not get started with The Exorcist, because I didn't bother watching The Exorcist when they had the IP for the first film, because, well, I heard it was that bad that I did not even want to watch it. And then again, David Gordon Green directed the film, the same director who directed Halloween Ends, which left a really bad taste in my mouth. To the point where I did not want to see him direct another horror film, quite frankly. I was kind of sick of him at the end of the Halloween trilogy. So, I'm hoping Blumhouse handles the Saw property better than it did with the Halloween property. Moving on, as I'm going to dive into some speculation to why we haven't gotten a sequel to a popular horror franchise. Recently, we got an update on the Hatchet franchise. It's been 8 years since the last Hatchet movie, called Victor Crowley, came out. And now we got an update to the reason why we haven't gotten a new Hatchet movie. There are behind the scenes issues that are holding up this franchise. Adam Green recently updated this as he's about ready to do his next film, The Ascent, which is a shock survival movie. It'll mark the first time Adam Green returned to the director's chair since Victor Crowley back in 2017. It's been almost 8 years since Adam Green has done a film. finally we are getting a film from him. But there's reasons to it why we have not gotten a Hatchet 5. According to an interview on Talks from the Crypt, and I quote, "It's always a possibility. I can't get into all the miniature because it would take up 6 more hours. But the long story short is, once we can make the movie with different entities behind the scenes at the top level, then I will be interested in doing Hatchet 5. He would go on to explain, but things need to change. That's probably enough. People can make of that what they want." Translation: most likely Adam Green and the studio Dark Sky Films don't see eye to eye with each other anymore, and he wants to take that property out of Dark Sky Films. So that's probably the main reason why we have not gotten a Hatchet 5 film, everyone. It's because there's a fight between Adam Green and probably Dark Sky Films. Because that's what it sounds like to me. It's just one of those things where it's this classic fight between the director and the studio. And that's what's not giving us Hatchet 5, everyone. I always thought Hatchet 4 was a good way to end the series, quite frankly. So if they don't do a Hatchet 5, I really don't mind if they don't do a Hatchet 5. In fact, I don't think there's no need to do a Hatchet 5 anymore. But I digress. Seriously, I can understand where Adam Green's coming from. It's always the studios that try to not give us the good things in life. Especially these independent producers. They may have one reason, the director may have another reason. It's the same way why we can't have Dawn of the Dead, a proper Dawn of the Dead version on Blu-ray. Instead, I still have that old Anchor Bay Blu-ray of Dawn of the Dead, because they have not put a new version of Dawn of the Dead here in the States. So this is my commentary on the whole situation here. All this is just me being speculative here. I could be wrong. It may not be the studio and the director. It could be another producer and the director outside the studio. But something tells me it's just from a speculation point. It's that classic director-studio squabble that's getting in the way of Hatchet 5. What else can it be? Seriously. What else can it be that the studio wants to do things one way and the director wants to do things another way? But then again, do we really need a Hatchet 5? Kind of ended perfectly with Hatchet 4. Now I'm going to take a quick break, and we're going to have a second news segment here on the podcast.
Welcome to Dark Discussions, your place for the discussion of horror film, fiction, and all that's fantastic. A weekly podcast where the discussion is about the most recent horror and genre films. Intelligent talk on a genre that deserves intelligence. A conversation between co-hosts discussing not only the film, but also the connotation that the directors and screenwriters are trying to articulate. When you want more than a review, listen to Dark Discussions.
And speaking of perception, there's just one more scene I want to talk about, which is after Caleb discovers that Kyoto's a robot. Kyoto kind of peels off her skin, showing him what's underneath.
Now, wait a minute. I know where you're going with this, but tell me you weren't already thinking this 15 minutes earlier in the film. Exactly what he's thinking at that moment.
Which is he's a robot, too.
Oh, I considered the possibility.
Right, and that's what I like, is the fact that the writers were smart enough to know that this is what the audience would be thinking.
We've all seen Blade Runner.
Right, exactly.
www.darkdiscussions.com, wherever podcasts are found.
Welcome back. Let's dive into some Warner Brothers news, as I got a couple of Warner Brothers news items that I have to take care of. First off, now I don't talk TV as much on this podcast. In fact, I don't talk horror TV much. But if there's a really good news story that really gets my attention, I will talk a little horror TV on this podcast. Case in point, The Last of Us. Now, if you've seen the season 2 finale, that was just bonkers. Seriously, bonkers. And I'll tell you why it was bonkers. Because it literally flipped the script. Because you were getting Ellie's point of view for the first 2 seasons of the show. Then all of a sudden, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this, you might want to skip ahead a little bit, because I will be going into spoilers. The last shots of season 2 shows Abby, who's played by Caitlin Devers, in a stadium, waking up, and we get the title called Day 1. And I was thinking to myself, what the bleep? Seriously? Are we going backwards here? It's like, where are we going here? It's like, you've already established Ellie as your main character. Now we're going backwards to Abby? I know this is done in the game, but this is a TV show, people, not a video game. So, I was like, mind baffled that we went backwards and was left with all of this confusion. What's season 3? Seriously, what is season 3 going to entail? Because you just left us all the way back to another point in time. It's like you're taking your story backwards. And now we got the main reason why we went backwards at the remaining moments of season 2 of The Last of Us. According to an interview through The Hollywood Reporter and Bloody Disgusting, which I found this news story, creator Neil Druckmann teased during an Emmys for Your Consideration event. He quoted, "I cannot believe they let us structure the series in this way." Meaning, like we just ended season 2 and season 3 is going to be starring, and this is going to be a spoiler alert, Caitlin. I was sure that they wouldn't let us do this when we started adapting this, but they've learned into what makes, I believe, the story special, and allowed us not only the time, but creative freedom to be able to take these swings, and I think the audience really appreciates that. First of all, my point on that comment, I like it when shows take risky moves. I don't want to see the same formula. This is why I like watching shows that have this different formula to it. That's what I want to see in a show. I don't want to see the same tired formula where everything is just paint by the numbers like you would see on all these network TV shows. At least 90-95% of these network TV shows. I'm talking more like ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, those types of shows. Cable, they do a lot of risky things. That's why I like watching stuff on cable and streaming services. But this is very ballsy. Seriously. I did not think they would go this route, quite frankly. As I thought they would play it safe. We'll rush on to season 3, where Ellie gets out of this jam immediately. But no, we're not, because guess who's going to be the main focus of season 3? Abby. Not Ellie, everyone. I know, this may shock and divide a lot of fans, because, oh, we love Ellie and everything. But this is apparently how the game is structured. And they want to stick to the way the game is structured. And I kind of like that. They did not going the safe route and making changes to the game where they're just following this one lead character every season. And to me personally, I kind of like it a lot because I didn't think we saw enough of Abby in season 2. I really thought we were going to see her in a much bigger capacity in season 2 of The Last of Us. And it looked like we were going to get that early on. But then she just disappeared until like the end of the season. Literally. In fact, at the very end of the season, to be exact. Spoiler alert. But still, I like this move. Because A, you have a capable actress who can lead a series playing Abby. Because from what I saw of Caitlin Dever's performance as Abby in season 2, she was very good in that role. And I was not surprised that she would pull that off easily. Just look at the film, No One Will Save You. She did a great job in that film. So I had no problems with this move at all. I really don't have a problem with the fact that they want to base season 3 around Caitlin Devers. That's not a bad idea. Seriously. Of course, you're going to get back to the ending of season 2 eventually. We don't know how long it's going to take to get back to the ending of season 2, but it'll fill in a lot of gaps that we had from the other side. As I'm guessing, most of season 3 is going to take place during Ellie's trip to Seattle, because we went back to day 1, so it's going to be a very interesting third season for sure. But I like this call from what they're doing by going backwards. If you're going to make Abby a major character in this series, you have to go back because you didn't do much in season 2. So I have no problem with this. I know people who watch the show, who haven't played the video games, like myself, may have a problem with it. I don't. I don't have a problem with it. If you want to go back, that's fine. Because I know the history of the series. So I can understand why they're doing this. And quite frankly, it is a ballsy move. Seriously. And I'm surprised HBO let them do it. Quite frankly. Because usually if you're a network, you want to keep things the status quo. But then again, HBO has been known to take risks. And that's what I like about HBO and their programming. They take risks. And that's sometimes they pay off big time. And I think this will pay off big time too. Seriously. I know everybody was upset when Pedro Pascal got killed off in season 2. Spoiler alert. But it had to enhance the story. It was part of the core story. They're not changing the core story for the television. I'm sorry. It's whatever they created in the video game you're probably going to get. So you'll have to deal with it. And think of it as an original piece of work if you have not seen or heard of this property before watching the TV show. It is a great TV show, quite frankly. Definitely. It is probably one of the best zombie TV shows I've ever seen. I'd probably put that ahead of The Walking Dead. Not saying something, but then again, The Walking Dead, it took forever and a day to get done. So that pretty much killed my interest in that series. There should be a general rule where a TV series has no longer than 7 seasons. That's it. If you want to end at 5 at streaming, that's fine too. But 7's enough. After that, it's overkill, quite frankly. And I can't wait to see what they do in Season 3 of The Last of Us. Moving on in Warner Brothers news. Now, this is old news, but a couple months ago, Warner Brothers confirmed new Gremlins movie and a new Beetlejuice movie. What, you kidding me? We're finally getting a new Gremlins movie after all these years? Seriously. I wouldn't mind seeing a new Gremlins movie. I love the first 2 movies. Seriously. Now, there's been chatter over the years about a Gremlins 3, but they were a bunch of nothing burgers. Meaning, just wishful thinking. Then a couple of months ago, Warner Brothers CEOs Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi spilled the beans, confirming that they are working on a brand new installment of the Gremlins franchise. And it's about time. And there's also some information on the new Gremlins movie that's going to come out. The script is going to be written by Chris Columbus, who wrote the original Gremlins movie. As his name's been attached to this since 2017, that he's been working on the script. Literally. About almost 8 years. Seriously. And back in 2017, he said in an interview that he's very proud of the script. It is as twisted and dark as anything, so we'll see. It's always a budgetary conversation when we're going to shoot it. I wanted to go back to the really twisted sensibility of the first film. I found that was an easy place for me to fall back into and start writing again. So hopefully we'll see that movie soon. End quote. Now, are we getting that dark and twisted movie that Chris Columbus wrote back in 2017? That's an interesting one. Because right now, the Gremlins universe is only existent in animated form, with the Gremlins, the Wild Batch, streaming on Max. I'm very interested in seeing if this is actually moving along. They say it is, so I'm really hoping we're finally going to get Gremlins 3 down the line. That would be good. And it would be something I would welcome, seriously. And in the same interview, Mike DeLuca also seemed to confirm that we are getting another Beetlejuice film. When asked if the studio was developing the sequel to Beetlejuice, the ink might not be dry on the deals yet, but imminently. So, stay tuned. That's basically the answer for that one. Now, I will only accept a Beetlejuice threequel under 4 conditions. If Tim Burton's involved, if Michael Keaton's involved, if Winona Ryder's involved, and if Jenna Ortega's involved. Any of those 4 not involved, I might not be interested. Seriously. Especially if Tim Burton or Michael Keaton or Winona Ryder are not involved. If one of those 3 are not involved, then it may be a no-go for me. It'll definitely be a no-go if Tim Burton or Michael Keaton are not involved. That's a definite. Because without Tim Burton or Michael Keaton with that franchise, there's no series. That is a definite. There is no series without those 2 people. Those 2 people are irreplaceable. Sure, you can replace Winona Ryder and put Jenna Ortega in. I could probably accept that. After the last film. Same thing. Sure, I can accept Winona Ryder and not have Jenna Ortega in the next film. I can accept that. Those are the 4 conditions. But the 2 top conditions I cannot accept. Tim Burton not directing or Michael Keaton starring in the film. If Tim Burton or Michael Keaton are not involved, I'm not interested. Seriously. Those are the only 2 people that are irreplaceable to the Beetlejuice series. It doesn't do you any good if you don't have the twisted mind of Tim Burton or the charismatic Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. If one of those 2 aren't in the next movie, I'm not interested. Seriously, everyone. You give those 2 whatever the hell they want to be in the next movie. I could probably live without Winona Ryder and or Jenna Ortega, but I'm definitely not living without Tim Burton's twisted vision or Michael Keaton's charisma as Beetlejuice. Because without those 2 pieces, there is no franchise. Clear cut as dry. There is no franchise without Tim Burton or Michael Keaton. So I really hope all 4 of them come back for the next film. But If I only get Tim Burton and Michael Keaton, I'll be fine. If you take one of those two pieces away, you can probably count me out. Unless somehow it has great reviews. And with that, that's the news. Every day there's a family struggling with hospital bills to care for their sick child who is fighting an illness. There's a woman who is fighting breast cancer and is having trouble making ends meet while paying for their treatment. And there are burn victims that are going through treatments to heal their deep wounds. There is a charity in the horror community that helps these people. Scares That Care is an organization that helps families deal with the bills for their child. They help women get the treatment they need to fight breast cancer, and they help people who are dealing with severe burns get the help they need to heal. Scares That Care is a 100% volunteer organization and 501c3 nonprofit charity that is dedicated to helping these people in fighting real monsters. To find out more information or to donate to Scares That Care, you can go to www.scaresthatcare.org. Every donation helps Scares That Care fight real monsters. Welcome back. Now, recently I went to CT Horrorfest, as they had their first of two shows this year over in Stamford, Connecticut, at the Stamford Hilton Hotel. And one of the things I noticed once I arrived there, it is such a beautiful hotel. It just is. From the outside to the inside of the hotel. This was, I think, one of the most beautiful hotels I've been in. And I've been in some really good ones, too. The Hiltons are usually good hotels. I've stayed there in Worcester, whether it's for Rock and Shock or Silver Scream Con. They've always been good hotels. Literally. So when I got there and checked in, I decided to drop my stuff off. Hung around the hotel room for a bit, then decided to go down, grab a bite to eat. Only to figure out the elevators were having a problem. Yeah, this really brought back some really bad memories. To Marlborough, Mass, in the Royal Plaza Hotel there, which is still the worst hotel I've ever stayed in, literally. That hotel was just so horrible. Everything about it was horrible, including the fact the elevators were horrible as well, as they weren't working. As a couple of them are literally shut down. By the end of the weekend, there was one working elevator. And then Monday morning, same thing, one working elevator. It's like they didn't even care about the working elevators. Seriously, that hotel. It felt shaky. It was not good. Seriously. And literally, that's the case I felt when I was there Friday night at the Hilton. But to the hotel's credit, they fixed those elevators overnight. And got at least a couple of them working the next day, which is good. Seriously. Because I don't like hotels where it's just one elevator. It doesn't work. And especially when you're going to a Hilton hotel, you're expecting a very good hotel. And thankfully, it was a very good hotel because it took care of its problem quickly. I would have never thought it would do it, but it did. I thought it was going to be the whole weekend with one elevator. Seriously, I thought that was going to happen. But they did a great job in quickly resolving the elevator situation at the hotel, and there was no problems the entire weekend with the elevator. So that was good to see. So at least the hotel was ready for this convention, even though there was some last minute hiccups with the elevators. I like it when places do that. Recognize their problems and fix it right away. Because you don't want to go to a hotel and literally have one elevator and there's lots of people there for the weekend. that's not going to be a pleasant experience. Trust me, I've experienced it over at the Royal Plaza Hotel the first time TerrorCon happened there, in that trade center / hotel. Anyways, let's get on to the convention itself. Saturday started off good. Was, of course, ready for this convention. I did not like the stamps. I hate stamps. When I go to a convention, I'd rather have a bracelet or a badge. I hate these stamps because these stamps really deteriorate quickly if you wash your hands. Seriously. It's not good to have stamps at a convention. I don't get that. Seriously. That's just lazy. Then getting in was fine. No problems. Of course, I stopped at the VS booth. Spent about $400 there. Of course, I'm going to spend a lot of money when they're at a convention. That's just me. Because, well, they're New England related. Always love to support New England related businesses like VS. Only disappointment at that booth was that they didn't have the film that I was really wanting so much. Swimming to Cambodia. I was hoping they would have that title early before Black Friday. If you don't know what Swimming to Cambodia is, it's a 90-minute monologue film by Spalding Gray, who's a fellow Rhode Islander who's mostly known for his one-man shows, who passed away years ago. Still a legend in my book. So I was very happy to find out that film was coming to Blu-ray, but that's part of the halfway to Black Friday sale. So, oh well. But anyway, we're getting way off topic, because I know you guys are not into the indie films of the 80s and 90s. This is a horror podcast, not an independent film podcast. Well, technically, it's an independent horror film podcast, somewhat, but not like an independent film podcast. So, we're moving on. Started to walk around a little bit, then literally met some vendors, couple I've seen at various cons before, which is always good to catch up with them. Then I decided to go meet Samantha Scafetti from Terrifier. Terrifier 2, Terrifier 3, and what do you know? The whole room was pretty much packed. Literally, they had all the Terrifier stars in one big room. It was packed. David Howard Thornton's line was packed. Lauren Lavera's line was packed. Elliot Fullman's line wasn't that packed. Felissa Rose's line was packed. Samantha's line was packed. So I better get in that line, because it might be a long time, literally, seriously, because it was just crazy with all these Terrifier people there, literally. I know it would be a big draw, seriously. If you're going to bring Terrifier people there, it would be a big draw. But this is, I think, one of the gripes I have with this con. Is the fact that that room was just total chaos. Literally. With people who brought the cut the line pass getting thrown into the regular line. And so what? It's like this. When you do a convention, you have one line that has cut the line passes, one line regular people. Then you do a 2-to-1 ratio, cut the line, or 3-to-1 ratio, cut the line, or 3-to-2 ratio, cut the line. Not just throw these people in the regular line. That was just so stupid. And if I had gotten that pass, I would have been extremely pissed off. Seriously. And I'm glad I did not get the cut the line pass, because Samantha was the only one I really wanted to see out of that Terrifier line. And I thought the others would be very easy to get to, which they were. It's just chaotic. Seriously. That Terrifier room was just chaotic. There was no control in that room. It was horrible. I felt sorry for those people who had that cut the line pass, because they should have been 2 separate lines for each celebrity. But there wasn't. You can't run a convention when you're selling VIP passes and cut the line passes and not have 2 separate lines. Or at least honor the cut the line pass by putting them to the front. I would have been okay with that, seriously, because I didn't buy the cut the line pass. I bought just a regular ticket. So it would have been fine if they went through first and I had to stand there another 20-30 minutes. I would have had no problem. There would be no problems with me. But the way that con handled that cut the line pass was so idiotic. I've never seen that at a convention. Seriously. When all this chaos was happening, I was thinking to myself, literally while talking with others, they should just put these guys at Hartford. Seriously. It would have been a much bigger room. You've been in a convention center, so it would have been no problem dividing 2 lines for these people. Or had them in that big room where they had a tent, but they decided to use that room with the tent. To describe that room, basically, that's like the big signing area at Monster Mania in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Now, that is where they put all the celebs there. And I kind of thought that's probably where the Terrifier people should have been, in that big room there. But instead, guess what they had in that room? You had one side of the room for photo ops, and the other side for panels. I've never seen that set up in my life. Literally. When I go to a convention, I have never seen that. Having the panel room and the photo op room in the same room. It made no sense. Literally. You would have had much more space for this convention if you moved the Terrifier people into that room. And you move maybe the Friday the 13th people there. It would have made more sense. I just did not like the layout of this convention. The way they had the celebrities set up and everything. I know it's a good thing to have the Terrifier people at the end so the vendors can make their money. That's good, too. But also, you need accessibility. And that Terrifier room was just chaotic. Literally. You could not. Also, I really thought the photo ops for the clown costume op was crazy as well. I know it's a Saturday. I know there's 2 sessions, but they literally did not have enough room for that. I don't know if it's their fault. That could be just the venue, because that's what the sense I got when I was waiting in line for David Howard Thornton on Sunday when they were getting all the Terrifier people lined up. That maybe they just didn't have enough room, period. So maybe I can forgive them for that, because at first I was not happy with the way they were handling it. But then seeing what was going on Sunday when I was lining up for David Howard Thornton, maybe that might have been a problem. When when you go to a convention, you get in the heat of the moment. You know what I mean? When you're in line for one of these big photo ops. I maybe just was in the heat of the moment and just really pissed off on Saturday. It's just being in that chaos terrifier room, really, and seeing the chaos. It's like, ugh. Sometimes it just gets to you sometimes at conventions. And I understand they're running a new building too, so. Sunday was fine. Sunday was a really good day. It probably wasn't that busy due to the fact that it's a Sunday. Usually it's not busy on Sundays. But Saturday was just rough. It was just rough. Now, as the people who I met at the convention, I did meet Samantha Scafetti. She was a very nice person. I met John Fury, Warren Gillette, and Amy Steele from Friday the 13th Part 2, as there was a big thing on that at this convention. I also met Denise Galick from V and Humanoids from the Deep. She was a very nice person as well. Met Jeff Daniel Phillips. Had a really good time with him. Very nice guy. Picked up his new movie, Cursed in Baja, which I may or may not review at the end of this podcast. Stay tuned. And of course, I did photo ops as well, as I mentioned them earlier in the review. I got 2 photo ops with David Howard Thornton, one with Art the Clown, Santa costume, and one with him himself, because, well, I was not going to go through that line. It's much easier to just do the photo op than go through his line that he always draws at conventions. I also did the 3 from Hell photo op with Jeff Daniel Phillips, Richard Brake, and Pancho Moller. That was a really good op. And I also did a photo op with Felissa Rose, which was really good. I enjoyed that one a lot. So, that's it for CT Horrorfest. Overall, I had a very good time with CT Horrorfest Stamford. It was good. There was probably some growing pains because, well, new venue means new problems. You probably should have put the Terrifier people in Hartford. But what can you do? You needed someone to draw at that venue, I guess. And that was probably the reason why they put the Terrifier people in Stamford. Because they needed a big draw. Because, well, you want to start off your new venue with a bang. They did that very well here with the Terrifier people. So, will I go to Stamford again? Yeah. It may be out of the way from everything else in town, as it's like literally out of the way. But at least it was a nice hotel. It is a great hotel. I love this hotel. Probably the best hotel I've stayed in. I can't say enough about staying in that hotel. The exteriors look very beautiful. The interiors look very beautiful. I have not seen a better looking hotel like that hotel. So, if they have another convention there, I would go there again. Seriously. Much more so than TerrorCon over in Marlborough, Mass. With that really awful hotel. But anyway, that is my thoughts on CT Horrorfest Stamford. Now, I will not be going to Hartford because, well, I'm doing one convention in September, and it's, of course, Silver Scream Con 4. I've already booked that one months in advance, as that's the only con you have to book months in advance. You don't have to do it for Rhode Island Comic Con. You don't have to do it for this. But that con, you literally have to book months in advance, or else you're not getting a hotel room in the Hilton, that's for sure. Or a VIP pass, that's for sure. So, I cannot wait. Especially the fact that they're having the concert at the DCU Center this year. which is very awesome. Don't get me wrong, last year was awesome having it outside at the Palladium. I thought it had a unique vibe to it. This great outdoor setting. Thankfully, no rain. As that could have been the worst. Having to sit at a concert in the rain. But anyway, that's that. As we're running way over in this segment. So that's a wrap on CT Horrorfest Stamford. If you want to find out the latest news for Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling Show, you can follow the podcast on the Slasher app, Facebook, and Instagram at Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling. You can also listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, DarkDiscussions.com, and the Film Arcade Media YouTube channel at youtube.com/FilmArcadeMedia. What's Anthony T watching this episode? Well, I told you that I would review a film, maybe, from CT Horrorfest that I picked up at that convention. And yes, I am reviewing a film that I picked up from CT Horrorfest. But there's a big but here. It's not from the VS table, everyone. In fact, I picked this film up off of Jeff Daniel Phillips' table at the convention. As if I see a film at Celeb's table that I haven't seen, I may pick it up. Even if it's a new film, and even if it's the fact that he directed the film, as well as writing it, as well as starring in it. But that wasn't the only reason why I picked up the film. As I also wanted to check it out because it's being distributed by Anchor Bay Entertainment. That's right, Anchor Bay Entertainment's back in 2025. In fact, they started with their reboot last year with new owners. They recently released a really good horror film last year called Crust, starring and directed by Sheen Wallen from The People Under the Stairs, Laid to Rest, and many other horror films. But here they also got Jeff Daniel Phillips' directorial debut with Cursed in Baja. Now, the title really is catchy, so that's a plus for me. Second, I like Jeff Daniel Phillips from Rob Zombie's 31, 3 from Hell, so I'm familiar with Jeff Daniel Phillips. So this was an easy buy. I got the Blu-ray autographed and everything. Plus the trailer looked like it's an insane film, so I had to definitely pick this film up. No questions asked. Now, let's go to IMDb to tell you the plot synopsis for this film. Pyrell, an ex-lawman, travels to Mexico searching for the heir to the Los Angeles fortune, while confronting his own complicated past. But what he finds in Baja challenges him to the core. Now, this is supposed to be a thriller, horror movie / crime movie, so sounds right up my alley. This looks like it's a weird film. What are my thoughts on this film? Well, this is a film in which I really don't think it's going to be for everyone. That means it's really one of those films where it's very bizarre, to say the least. Seriously. As this literally blends a lot of stuff here. It has this film noirish type feel with it, with the main character and everything. You have this psychological horror, which really feels like something out of a David Lynch film. You also have the straight up horror monster movie aspect too. You also have this detective story, like something you would find out of Sin City or films like that. So, what are my initial thoughts? I really like this film a lot. Seriously. I know people don't like slow burn horror films, but this is a very good one. And I really think it's a credit to Jeff Daniel Phillips here, as he really does a great job with his performance, his directing, and his writing. As he did all three of those things here. It's not an easy feat to do. Direct your own film, write your own film, and be the lead in your own film. That usually screams vanity project. But this film did not feel like a vanity project, which is a good thing. Because we all know my stance on vanity projects. They usually don't end well. Just look at Glenn Danzig's Veronica. That's a vanity project. But this was something in which Jeff Daniel Phillips wanted to blend different genres and make his own B-movie. Because there's a very interesting thing on the Blu-ray in which he really goes into why he made this film. It's worth the watch. Seriously, if you really like this film, definitely watch the bonus feature on the Blu-ray, because it is very good. Seriously, it's the definition of make your own damn movie. Now back to the review. One of the things I really loved about this film is the fact that this had this dark, supernatural, Lynchian type feel to it, with all these bizarre situations in which the main detective goes through. You have weird characters. You have horrific moments. All things that you will normally see out of a David Lynch production. And Jeff Daniel Phillips, I know, was not going for a David Lynch type film. Because after seeing the bonus feature myself, he wasn't going for that type of film. Which is good. I don't want to see people trying to copy other directors. If a director has an idea and wants to blend genres, that's good. But one of the things I really liked about the way he chooses which genres and which kind of characters to put in his screenplay is done in a way in which it makes the story engaging. And when you make a story engaging, you're going to like the film. Simple as that. Because this is a low-budget film. So you have to make your story engaging and entertaining, or else no one in their right mind is going to like the film. I've seen filmmakers fail miserably on that with low-budget films. But Daniel does a very good job in the way he comes up with the story and everything. And speaking of the screenplay, I really like that he does a great job not making this film feel like your traditional mystery, your traditional horror film. He blends those two genres very well. Enters a dash of film noir with the narration part of it, which really I liked a lot because it really goes into the character's state of mind throughout the course of this film. I like it when you have characters talking, like hearing the character's process of thought. And I really like the fact that Phillips does a really good job with the way he does that aspect very well. As it does a very good job giving insight to the main character of this film. Because you need that character to be engaging. And also the action really pays off very well, especially towards the end of this film, as it really has an intense feel to it. Plus some of the action in the middle has this film noir-like feel to it, which I loved. As I'm kind of a fan of these detective stories, and it's like a throwback to those film noir films with the main character and everything, which I liked a lot. And the acting was very good. I thought Jeff Daniel Phillips did a great job directing his cast here. I thought the cast had great chemistry with each other. I like how they made their characters very engaging. But the real star of the film is Phillips himself. He really does a great job here. He gives a great performance in this film. He makes his character feel tormented, like the old detectives from the film noir films. and he does a great job really grabbing my interest throughout this film, as he's on screen for pretty much the entire time of this film. And if you don't have a great performance like what Phillips did along with his direction, then the film suffers. Thankfully, it did not suffer, as Jeffrey Daniel Phillips, I think, gives one of his best performances. And the fact that he's directing his own performance just makes it even better, quite frankly, as I'm really starting to like this trend of horror actors directing here. You had Sheen Wallen recently with Cross, which is a really good film that I think was in my top 20 films of last year. Now you have Kirsten Baja with Jeff Daniel Phillips. And I really think Anchor Bay Entertainment is on a roll here with their horror films. Seriously. I like how they're picking and choosing the right films to distribute. It kind of reminds me of the old days of Anchor Bay somewhat. Now we just need to get the old Anchor Bay films back and we can have the good old days of Anchor Bay again. Seriously, I would love that. But anyway, enough with Anchor Bay Entertainment. Back to the review. This is definitely a great film. I highly recommend you check this out. If you're a fan of Sin City, if you're a fan of any of David Lynch's work, you will definitely enjoy this film a lot. As Kirsten Baja is a trippy ride, as it's a mental mind bleep into hell. 5 stars. A couple of quick show notes before I end this episode. First, don't forget to go to the Film Arcade Media YouTube page at youtube.com/Film Arcade Media. I recently did a review of Bring Her Back. You can catch my thoughts on this film, as literally this is one of the best films of the year. Go to my review on the YouTube page to check out why I think it's one of the best horror films of the year so far, as I was very frightened with this film. It is a very disturbing film, to say the least. But check the full review out over at youtube.com/Film Arcade Media. Don't forget, you can listen to this podcast anytime on YouTube at Film Arcade Media, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and other podcast providers. I want to thank you for listening to this episode, and have a good day and support indie horror. This has been a Film Arcade Media production.